The rivalry between Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill was one of the defining personal clashes of the Second World War. Hitler admired Churchill's oratory and political skill early in his career, but came to loathe him as the man who refused to yield. Hitler planned to assassinate Churchill by disguising a bomb into a book. The idea of the book bomb came from Nazi sabotage units who were always experimenting with ways to smuggle explosives past enemy security. The bomb was constructed by hollowing out a thick hardback book and inserting a small but powerful explosive charge inside, often a type of plastic explosive or TNT. The pages were cut carefully so that, when the book was closed, it appeared untouched. The trigger was designed to be pressure-sensitive, meaning the moment Churchill, or anyone else, opened the book, it would ignite the fuse and detonate the charge. The explosion would not have been as large as a conventional bomb, but at close range it would have been deadly, especially in Churchill's study or office. The most likely design was a spring-loaded detonator linked to the book's cover. While closed, the spring would be under tension, held in place by the pressure of the cover. Once the cover was lifted beyond a certain angle, the spring would snap forward, striking a percussion cap and setting off the main charge. This meant the bomb could only be activated by someone opening the book, making it targeted rather than indiscriminate. The book might have been sent as a parcel, a diplomatic delivery, or even through a third-party intermediary, such as a publisher or bookseller. Churchill frequently received books as gifts from admirers, authors, and even political contacts, which made the idea of an unsolicited book package less suspicious. If it had passed through postal or courier routes, the Nazis hoped it would blend in as an ordinary gift. Once at Downing Street or one of Churchill's country residences, like Chartwell or Chequers, the book would have been delivered to his personal staff. The Germans likely imagined Churchill himself picking up the book, opening it out of curiosity, and triggering the device instantly. The blast would have been small compared to a bomb in a car or building, but at arm's length it would have been lethal. The confined space of Churchill's study or office would have amplified the damage, making survival highly unlikely. During wartime, Churchill's secretaries and aides routinely placed reading material in his study, sometimes without thorough inspection. Had the plot gone unnoticed, the book could easily have been set beside his chair for late-night reading. This kind of disguised weapon wasn't unique. German saboteurs developed exploding coal lumps, tins of food, chocolate bars, and even shoes that contained charges. The book bomb fit into this arsenal of everyday objects turned lethal. That Churchill was a famous bibliophile who spent much of his free time surrounded by books, reading both for pleasure and preparation of his speeches. German intelligence hoped to exploit this habit by crafting a hollowed-out book with a bomb hidden inside. The device was designed so that, when opened, the charge would detonate instantly, killing whoever held it. The book itself was carefully prepared to look like a genuine volume, giving it the appearance of an ordinary gift or delivery. British counterintelligence, however, discovered the plan before it could ever be put into practice. It is believed that the warning reached London through intercepted German communications and also through informants in occupied Europe. The plot never got close to Churchill because British intelligence discovered it in time. In reality, British intelligence already knew about German disguised bombs, thanks to code-breaking, double agents, and captured devices like the infamous exploding chocolate bar. MI5 ordered rigorous checks on all parcels addressed to Churchill, and suspicious items were opened by explosives experts, not the Prime Minister. The book bomb was intercepted or abandoned before reaching him, and Churchill never came close to opening such a deadly gift. MI5 had a network of double agents feeding them information on German sabotage plans, and they also intercepted coded messages through Ultra, the decoding of the Enigma machine. One way or another, London was warned of the plan, and Churchill's staff were instructed to inspect all incoming gifts and parcels more carefully. Once the plot was exposed, MI5 issued warnings about suspicious packages and increased the inspection of all deliveries to the Prime Minister. The bomb book itself never made it into Churchill's hands, but the very existence of such a plot illustrates just how determined the Nazis were to silence him. What makes this assassination attempt especially chilling is how personal it was. Unlike a sniper or bombing raid, the book bomb was tailored to Churchill's own personality and habits. For a man who found comfort in literature during wartime, the idea that a trusted object like a book could conceal death must have been unsettling. Though it was never carried out, the plan is remembered as one of the more bizarre and sinister assassination concepts of the Second World War. The package arrived at 10 Downing Street late in the afternoon, wrapped neatly in brown paper and tied with string. It bore the name of a London bookseller Churchill had used before. To the staff, it looked harmless enough, just another book for the Prime Minister's ever-growing collection. They placed it on the table beside his chair in the cabinet room, where the great man so often worked into the night, cigar smoke curling into the lamplight. Churchill returned from a war council weary but restless. He poured himself a glass of brandy, lit a cigar, and glanced at the new arrival. Books were his solace. He could never resist opening one, even in the darkest days of war. He pulled at the string, tore away the paper, and revealed a thick volume bound in black leather. It looked ordinary, even inviting. He sat, puffing at his cigar, and with one hand opened the cover. In that moment, had fate been unkind, the spring mechanism hidden beneath the pages would have snapped forward, driving a firing pin into its detonator. The explosion, compact but deadly, would have torn through the desk and engulfed the Prime Minister in fire and smoke, silencing the voice that had vowed Britain would never surrender. But this was not to be. In reality, Churchill's security team had been warned by MI5. Packages like this one were now opened by explosives experts in a sealed chamber, not by the Prime Minister himself. The book bomb was never placed in Churchill's hands. Its cruel trick never sprung. Instead, it became one of the many failed Nazi assassination ideas, a sinister footnote in the long duel between Hitler and Churchill. From the Nazi perspective, Winston Churchill was not just an enemy leader, but a relentless obstacle to Hitler's ambitions. By 1940-41, Britain was supposed to have been brought to its knees through bombing, blockade, and the threat of invasion. Yet Churchill's stubborn refusal to negotiate, and his ability to rally both his own people and the Americans, made him one of the most hated figures in Berlin. For Hitler and Himmler, conventional military strikes seemed insufficient. The Abwehr and SS sabotage units were therefore tasked with finding inventive ways to assassinate the British Prime Minister, using deception and stealth rather than open attack. German technicians had already been experimenting with disguised explosives. Lumps of coal filled with charges that could be slipped into locomotives, tins of food and tobacco that could detonate when opened, and even chocolate bars booby-trapped to explode when broken. Within this arsenal of covert devices, the book bomb emerged as a sinisterly elegant idea. To the Nazis, it seemed perfectly tailored to Churchill's known habits. He was a man of words and history, often seen with a book in hand. What better way to strike at him than to turn one of his beloved volumes into an instrument of death? Inside secret workshops in Germany, saboteurs would hollow out the core of a thick hardback book, inserting a block of plastic explosive within its pages. The trigger mechanism was designed with precision. The pressure of the closed cover kept a small spring in place, but the simple act of opening the book would release the spring, ignite the detonator, and unleash the blast. To German planners, the beauty of this device was its subtlety. No obvious wires, no bulky mechanisms, just the familiar feel of paper and binding, concealing destruction inside. The plan was to deliver the book to Churchill as a gift or parcel, perhaps routed through a neutral intermediary or disguised as coming from a trusted bookseller. The Nazis calculated that it might reach Churchill's desk unchallenged, where curiosity would do the rest. In their minds, this would be not only an assassination but also a symbolic blow, the silencing of Britain's voice of defiance by a weapon hidden inside the very object that symbolized knowledge and culture. For the Nazi leadership, such a method was fitting, cruel, deceptive, and theatrical. Yet even as they imagined Churchill leaning over his desk, cigar in hand, opening the fatal volume, the reality was different. Their enemies in British intelligence were already intercepting communications, unmasking double agents, and cataloging captured devices. The Nazis could plot, but the book bomb would never leave their laboratories. From their side, the scheme must have seemed ingenious. In hindsight, it stands as one of many desperate attempts to destroy a man whose survival ultimately helped doom the Third Reich. By the early 1940s, British counterintelligence had already realized that the Germans were experimenting with disguised explosives. Fragments of booby-trap devices were recovered in Europe and analyzed by the Special Operations Executive, SOE, and MI5's counter-sabotage branch, Section B1A. British experts quickly understood the principle. Any common object, a bar of chocolate, a lump of coal, a tin of food, or a hardback book, could be hollowed out and fitted with a detonator. With that knowledge, MI5 issued strict new guidelines for handling all parcels and gifts addressed to government officials, especially Winston Churchill. Churchill's personal staff were ordered never to pass uninspected packages directly to him. Instead, all mail and deliveries went through screening by explosives experts. Suspect packages were opened using protective equipment or sometimes X-rayed to detect hidden cavities. The Prime Minister's offices at 10 Downing Street and his country retreats like Chequers were equipped with additional security staff trained to recognize suspicious weight, uneven bindings, or tampered seals on items like books. Nothing was taken for granted, not even the most innocent-looking present. Churchill himself was notoriously impatient with overbearing security, but MI5 had the leverage of hard evidence. They showed him examples of captured Nazi devices, including the infamous exploding chocolate bar, which looked indistinguishable from Cadbury's, but contained a small charge powerful enough to kill at close range. Once Churchill understood how ingenious these traps could be, he grudgingly accepted the need for stricter controls, even if he sometimes complained about delays in receiving his mail or gifts. In practice, this meant that if a book bomb had been dispatched from Germany, it would almost certainly have been intercepted before it ever reached Churchill's desk. MI5's watchfulness, combined with Britain's ultra-intelligence program, which decrypted German communications, gave advance warning of assassination schemes. When German agents were captured in Britain, many carried disguised explosives, which were promptly studied by British ordnance specialists. Each discovery strengthened MI5's ability to anticipate future tricks. This defensive vigilance was vital. Churchill was not only Britain's leader but also a symbol of resistance whose survival had strategic value in itself. His voice on the radio, defying Hitler, was as important as Britain's fighter planes in keeping morale alive. Protecting him meant protecting the idea of British endurance. Against the ingenuity of German sabotage planners, MI5 and Churchill's security detail responded with their own ingenuity, a system of checks, inspections, and intelligence sharing that made sure even a hollowed book could not silence the Prime Minister.